Hey there, friends and enemies. JoPaWrites here again, and today I wanted to talk about King's Fall and Destiny 2. The raid is finally here. It was a fun weekend of raiding for a lot of people. We got the world's first race, all that kind of good stuff. And I wanted to give a guide for folks who are either new, haven't played King's Fall in quite some time from Destiny 1, or just wanted a refresher for the raid because there are some changes to the mechanics that everyone should be aware of. There are also some tips and tricks that I think will make things a lot easier that people, I believe, might not be aware of, and some secrets to also check out in the raid as well that I wanted to talk about. Now, I'm going to go over the mechanics, the loadouts, all that kind of good stuff. And starting off with the opening encounter, the entrance is very, very simple. It's not a darkness zone. So you don't have to worry about your team wiping or anything like that. And that means there's not a lot of pressure. The only thing is the longer you take, obviously, the longer it takes to get into the raid proper. So you're going to kind of want to try to be as efficient as possible here. You're going to have two teams of three going right and left. There are going to be a relic on each side that you need to find and dunk reasonably close to the same time. So you want to clear the ads and also clear these taken blights and the blight walls as fast as possible, because on the left hand side you're going to see time remaining. Once that time ticks down, you're going to lose the relic and you're not going to be able to dunk it. So add clear weapons, add clear supers. That's going to be your best friend. Also, some tips that my team has learned: when you're splitting up into your two teams of three, have one player stick with the relic holder to clear the ads with them, and then have a second player stay towards the top of the ramp or towards where the taken blight walls spawn, because that'll allow you to clear the ads that are ahead very, very quickly. They're not very difficult. It's very easy to take them all down, take down the blight walls very fast. And so for that reason, I would highly recommend splitting up and making sure you're being as efficient as possible, so that way your relic holder doesn't have to stop at any point during his run. Because the thing that takes the longest here is if you slip up a couple times and you're too slow, and now your relic holder has to run all the way back down. What you could also do in that scenario, because it doesn't have to be the same two relic holders, is you could have somebody else travel down and go get the relic instead. And it just depends on how comfortable everybody is with the various roles, because it's not very difficult, but you don't want somebody who is new to the raid to kind of panic and not understand what they're doing with the relic or go to the wrong area. It's pretty self-explanatory, not too difficult, but just something to keep in mind there. Overall, this is an encounter that is a nice introduction to the raid, but not super difficult at all. So once you clear this out, once you clear all the enemies and you're able to dunk all 6 relics, then you're end up going to have a portal open that you can travel to from the Court of Orcs, which is a fan favorite location in Destiny 1. I love this area so much. However, before you go through the portal, you're going to clear all these ads, and then underneath this platform, there's going to be a set of runes. What these runes are going to allow you to do is get a guaranteed red border weapon at the end of the run. So you're going to want to make sure that you find all the locations for these runes. There's a lot of different combinations, so look up a guide for that separately for sure, because I don't really have time to go through every single rune combination here. But throughout the raid, there's going to be these 3 runes that you shoot. If you shoot all of them, you get the red bordered weapon and get a guaranteed pattern for a raid weapon, which is very convenient and I think a nice touch for this, and I'm glad they finally used that area. Go through the portal. Don't forget the chest here. I forgot the chest, and make sure, obviously you'll get the loot at the end anyway from your postmaster or whatever the case may be, but you want to make sure you grab all the chests as you're going through, because it's just the smart thing to do. Other than that, you're going to go through the jumping puzzle next, and this area is not too difficult. I find the jumping puzzles in D2 a lot easier than they were in D1 for whatever reason. I felt like I fell off a lot more in Destiny 1, which is interesting. And I found this to be incredibly simple. Not only that previous area, but also the ships. Now, if you want to throw on something like a dash, shoulder charge, swords, whatever the case may be to help you out with this, definitely do so. You're going to want to stop at this platform in the middle. That's going to give you a checkpoint. So if you do die, if you fall off for any reason, you're going to be able to start there. But yeah, it's pretty simple. And the pattern, I remember a lot clearer than I did in Destiny 1 for whatever reason. Maybe it's because we've rated so much more now with Destiny 2, but it does feel like it's not as challenging as it once was, which is nice, but also very interesting to remember. So once you get up here, you're going to clear some ads, proceed to the next area, and this is where there's going to be the first like secret chest that you're going to find in the Kingsfall raid. So you are going to jump back on another ship, and then off to the left there's a wall jutting out that you're going to go to. Now there was also one of the runes for us over by this wall as well, so that's something to keep in mind. But this is where the first chest is going to be found. Reminder that these chests that you find over there are going to be only filled with loot that you've already obtained in the raid in one of the main encounters. So you're not going to be getting new loot from them. Then you're going to stand on some platforms, and you're going to allow the rest of your team to come through, take down the wall, and then get into the totems encounter, which is, in my opinion, probably significantly easier now that the contest modifiers off, and one of the easiest encounters in this raid for sure. It's all about getting the rotation down, and once you get it down, it's pretty simple. As far as loadouts go, you can run anything like sword. That's what I preferred, as well as outbreak, and then I ran a fusion rifle as well to take down the wizards if I have to. But overall, I found that this encounter is very very simple. Basically, you're going to want to have one player with the brand of the Unraveler stay over by the totems, and you're going to have two teams of three. One player is always going to have the brand on each side. They're going to stay near the totem. You don't have to stand on the totem the whole time. That's something that I think a lot of people don't remember. But you only have to make sure that you don't trigger the wipe mechanic. So as it counts down, you're going to be killing ads. If you're in the middle, don't kill any of the taken, because that's how you're going to enhance the Death Singer's power if you have the brand. Once you get Death Singer's power, you're going to go to the middle, charge up the middle platform, and then rinse and repeat. So the loop is very simple. You jump up, kill a wizard, kill the blight caller, and then drop down and go get the blight once the timer is running down. So you can really time this in order to take the blight at, or the brand at, like, I don't know, something like 1 seconds, something like that. And this is something, the brand claimer mechanic is something to keep in mind for the rest of the raid, because it is going to be necessary later on as well. Now, again, you only want to be killing the Taken if you have the brand of the Unraveler, so you can get the Death Singer's power. Again, you're going to see me jump off the platform a little bit in order to take down some enemies, because it's not really necessary to stay on the platform the whole time, especially if you want to be as efficient killing these enemies as possible. Count down for your teammates, and then proceed from there. The reason I'm running a pulse is that there is unstoppable champions that will spawn in the middle. Those are some of the harder enemies that you're going to have to keep in mind, that they do spawn, as well as these knights that are traveling down. You're going to see them as well. You want to kill those for the player who is down on the totem, and the reason being is, if not, what's going to end up happening is that player can get overwhelmed. So as you're traveling back up, when I have the Destiny's power, I don't have a timer there. Like, I'm not in a rush, so you are the one that should be clearing the ads, clearing the knights, and taking down the unstoppable ogre before proceeding back into the same loop that you were doing before. Again, the encounter is not overly difficult in my opinion once you get the routine down. It's pretty repetitious, especially if you have teammates who know what they're doing. If you want to, you could probably run this in a loop of 2 if you're fast enough, and then just have some folks clearing ads, but that's not really beneficial because of the brand of the Unraveler holder needing to be the one that clears the ads. You don't get any progress for the Death Singer's power for killing the Hive, So don't worry about killing those. You definitely, if you're in the middle, those are the enemies that you want
I'm
to
at 10.
worry about killing as much as possible. But the Minotaur, for example, will give
No,
you
no, I'm at tap the
two
ticket.
Death Singer's power instead of just one. So you definitely want to take down those enemies when you have the brand for sure, because those are going to be very advantageous. There's some enemies that spawn up on platforms as well on each side that you need to take down, but again, at this rate, outside of contest modifier, I did not find that too difficult. In the middle, you're going to see there that there's runes on the door. They're going to be the indicator on when you're finishing up the encounter. And so, yeah, taking down the Blight Guard is easy, but once you filled up those
Oh, that
runes, you're
was
going to clear the
very
encounter, get
difficult.
your rewards, and then move on to what I believe is the hardest encounter in this whole raid, the War Priest. Now, we had another one of our runes over here, so that's why we went and checked out that area. But this encounter during contest mode was the DPS check. It was very difficult, and it can still be a bit of a headache if you don't know what you're doing. So you're going to split into teams of two, one left, one right, one center. You're going to clear ads. Once you clear a bunch of ads, there are going to be some wizards spawn. You want to take down the wizards as quickly as possible. They're big orange bar wizards. And then you also want to take down the knights that spawn after them. And once you take down the knights, that's going to trigger the beginning of the DPS phase. So take down the knights. Help if you're down below and you throw on a linear fusion rifle for DPS. You can help your teammates that are up top take down the wizards, because that is helpful for sure. Take down the knight, and then once you travel in the DPS, you're going to have 4 players who are doing DPS, and then 1 player who is going to be looking for the first
Yeah,
knight, and a second
my
player
enemies were
looking for the
lagging a little
second knight.
bit.
So
I got
basically,
killed
how
around
this
it.
works is once you get started, you're going to stand on the 3 different totems, and the first of all, the
Yeah, some of
player
them.
in the middle is going to stand on the first totem. He look right and look left. If he sees a, a light behind one of the big rock formations on right or left, that's the direction that they need to do when they're doing the glyph reading sequence. And then they'll step back on, they'll call out right or left. Whoever's on that side is going to
I got the knight. Yeah, I got
call
the
out
knight.
the next one. And so you want to stand on the 3 different totems in order. You're also going to have a player killing the knight, grabbing the brand claimer like in the last encounter, and then you're going to, at the count of
Got it.
2, 1, whatever the case may be, you're going to steal the brand. So that way you extend the damage phase.
9,
So basically, you're going to want to steal the brand
5,
2 times during
4,
each damage phase, and
3,
that's very important
2,
because in total you
1.
get a maximum of 4 damage phases in this encounter. Reason being is after each damage phase, you're going to have a wipe mechanic that will kill whoever is not behind these large rock formations. And once you have the War Priest call the Oculus and it destroys these rock formations, they can no longer be used. The other thing that you want to keep in mind is you don't want to be doing DPS right behind the rock formations unless you are able to see the War Priest at all times, because he does move side to side. So we found that doing DPS a little bit off the side was a little bit more advantageous and helped out. After the first 2 rounds, what you're going to see is that instead of Hive, there's going to be taken enemies to take down, but it's the same,
Questionable.
essentially the same encounter. You're going to take down the taken enemies, you're going to take down the wizards, take down these taken knights, and do DPS once again. What I found to be a really good loadout was an Arbalist, SMG, and another linear fusion. The linear fusions are really good for damage. Arbalist is really good as a backup damage dealer, especially if you're down below. I've seen some teams go up top and use like swords and fusions to do damage, but that requires a lot of coordination and everyone using the proper loadouts, the proper buffs and debuffs and stuff. So that's just something to keep in mind for sure. We were running not Phantom Might, we were running High Energy Fire, And so that way, whenever someone dropped a well, whenever somebody dropped a bubble,
I got a second night.
they were able to get that buff. They were able to charge the teammates, and it would last because you're not really killing any enemies. The buff would last the entire damage phase. So take down the war priest and move on into the next area. Again, this one's very, very challenging. I think you can use rockets as well as damage phase, but overall, linear fusions are the king of DPS right now, and that's just what we found easiest. Now you're going into the maze. Don't fall in the holes because you will die, and travel through, stand on certain plates in a certain order. Once you learn the order, you stand on the plates, you're actually going to get a chest here, which is very nice. And again, this is another chest that will not reward you with new loot, but only loot that you've already obtained in the raid. So do that, grab your loot, and then travel on into the next area. And this is where it gets a little bit more interesting as well, because now we are taking on Golgoroth. Golgoroth is a interesting, fun encounter that I really, really enjoyed, but can be challenging if you don't have coordination. Plus, there are some minor issues that make it a little bit more difficult than it might need to be. So basically, again, you're splitting into teams. You're going to take down ads, clear out as many as possible. Eventually, a knight will spawn. You got to kill the knight in order to get to the damage phase. And as you're clearing ads, you're going to have two players. This is how we did it. Two players who are going to keep the gaze of Golgoroth, and in order to do so, that's how when you can do damage. And as you're keeping the gaze, it's important because you're going to try to keep his attention while the rest of the team does damage. So you're going to see up in the top left of the screen, there's going to be a bubble that you're going to need to shoot down. That's going to drop the buff, basically, that's going to allow you to do damage pretty consistently. Because what ends up happening, if you don't drop down into the pool of reclaimed light, then you're just not going to do enough damage. The damage you can see if you are not standing in the pool is significantly less. Now, one of the reasons that it's so important to keep the gaze in the right direction is that as he turns, you're going to lose all the damage because you can't really shoot him in the back, and you're going to have him kind of facing the wrong direction. So you see that here. That's something that it's very important to try to keep his gaze and keep him looking in the direction of the teams doing damage. So the players doing damage. So the other thing to keep in mind, see how the damage is significantly less once the pool runs out, or you're not standing in the pool. You've also got a lot of thrall running around, so you're going to want to kill those as quickly as possible. Throw some grenades at your feet. That's really helpful in order to stay alive and in order to kill the ads as quickly as possible. And there's also going to be a debuff where you're going to potentially be taking thrall yourself, where you do explode. So if you do get that debuff on you, you're going to want to run under Golgoroth's feet, because you see the red on my teammate Pugdemic there. That is going to explode and do damage to Golgoroth as well. So that's pretty much the entirety of the damage phase. The team of two that's at the top is going to be continuing to keep the gaze and pass the gaze from one to the other. There's a limited number of times that you can pass the gaze. So once you've reached the max of that, that's when the damage phase is going to end. You're going to rinse and repeat and start the cycle all over again. It's not overly challenging from what I've experienced in order to stay alive with this encounter. But in order to not make the damage phase last too long, you definitely have to be efficient with keeping Golgoroth looking at the team who is doing DPS for as long as possible, because as soon as he looks away, you're losing a ton of DPS, and that's really the biggest issue that we found. And sometimes even when you get his attention, he doesn't always turn in the right direction, which is kind of unfortunate. But overall, again, this is not too challenging once you get the routine down. And once you do get that routine down, it is a fun encounter, because taking him down is very, very satisfying. And again, so one of the things that you also have to keep in mind is that because there's so many ads, it's really simple to keep your ammo economy up, but you definitely want to just unload as much into them as possible and have your callouts be efficient as you're rotating from one area to the next. Because what I've often seen when I'm doing this encounter is that if you're not careful, then that's when the players tend to get flustered, and then everyone seems to scramble and go in different directions. We've also had problems where players would take down the orbs up top too early, and everyone wasn't ready to go move and do damage. They wouldn't call out when they were taking down the orb, and so that's going to lose you DPS there. But overall, again, this is not something that's overly difficult, especially once you do enough DPS and you get the routine down. Again, linear fusions are king here. You can use other weapons. If you have DPS supers, they're really handy there as well. Whether it's like Nighthawk Golden Gun, whether it's a Nova Bomb, anything like that. And then we get to the funnily named Dick Wall, or whatever you might call it. This is a fun and little jump puzzle. There is a secret chest here to grab as well, so you definitely want to do that. If you don't see the platforms, you can take out your ghost and check those out. So you definitely want to grab the chest and then proceed on to where your teammates are. There are some platforms to stand on that you can extend the time frame of when the hidden platforms are available as well, so that's something to remember. But overall, this is a pretty simple jumping puzzle, nothing too crazy once you learn the route and you are able to get the secret chest, all that kind of good stuff. Now we get to the daughters. This is probably actually, I said totems was the easiest. This might be the easiest, and the reason being because Wardcliff is absolutely bananas. You absolutely want to be running a Wardcliff on this encounter. The way my team did it, we set up one player on each of the 4 platforms. Now, you don't have to do it that way. You can kind of rotate as well if you're doing challenge mode. But we also had 2 floaters, and that way we had all of them covered. So basically, one player is going to randomly be torn between dimensions. You're going to go to whatever platform had a knight on it. You're going to look up. You're going to see a floating orb. That's going to be above where the next platform you need to go to. So that player needs to stand on the platform. In order to get these taken platforms to spawn, you're going to go grab the orb and then drop on down. You have to do that 3 times in order to get towards the damage phase. So the 3rd time, the player who is up high is going to end up dunking the orb that he grabs on one of the sisters. So the best way that we found to do it is to go underneath the platform of whatever sister, opposite of whatever sister that you're doing damage to. So we chose the one that is glowing to start off with first, and then you go, you do damage, and you rinse and repeat. However, you want to make sure that you have to take down the sisters in back-to-back damage phase. So as long as you're able to take them down in one phase, you're fine. And with Wardcliff, it absolutely goes crazy. It treats the Death Singers as vehicles for whatever reason, so you're easily able to one phase. That's not a problem. If you're not able to one phase, what you have to do is you have to do damage to one of them and then do damage to the other one, because you have to clear them in back-to-back rounds. So you'll have to run it either 2 times or 4 times, unless you're able to do a full clear one run and then hope that you get it the next one, something like that. But overall, you definitely want to pay attention and try to do it in back-to-back runs. Again, same thing as before. You're going to get the torn between dimensions, look for the orb, and overall, it's fairly simple from this. The ads aren't too crazy at this encounter. Just make sure you're spamming grenades, you're throwing all of your abilities out, because you're not going to need them. You also don't have to worry about anything besides Wardcliff Coral really for damage. So a long range weapon for the snipers is nice, and then something like an SMG to take down the ads up close is also really, really handy. Overall, I was running a sniper because I wanted to try out the new one, but I didn't use it too often. It's not really hard. So with the 3.0 subclasses, it's really simple to stay alive if you spec into whether it's resilience or whether it's
I'm torn
shielding or
again.
anything like that. So I am
Basically,
running a Void Titan with an
it's
overshield, and it just makes it very, very simple. So again, take down the knight. You're gonna jump up. If you're torn between dimensions, you're gonna go find the orb to dunk, and this
close.
time is gonna be the last phase. I'm gonna dunk on the sister. Join my teammates for DPS and take her down very, very simply.
Yeah,
This
that's the
encounter,
way.
like I said, is probably the easiest in the entire raid.
I'm dunking,
Um,
right? I'm dunking.
Totems, if you get thrown off, can be a little bit challenging, but because of the way
Now.
Wardcliff works on this character, it's like
Okay. Done.
unless you completely run out of ammo,
Good.
this
I'm
is
in.
very, very simple to take her down. It's actually kind of insane how effective this is. So one thing to keep in mind, a well or rift with Luna factions, because the reload on Warcliff is so slow, very, very handy. So you can also charge with light, all that kind of stuff, but not really all that necessary. It's a very
actually
easy
hilarious.
encounter, and just make sure you don't die at the end to ads, because as long as you're on that platform, you should be fine. Then we get into Oryx, which is so much fun. This gave me so much nostalgia, and I absolutely loved this encounter. It's not
It
any more difficult than
feels so
D1. I
sick,
don't find
bro.
it very, very challenging. If you get the touch of malice from the raid, it's very handy here. That's just something to keep in mind. It is crazy. So, same thing as the last encounter. You're going to have night spawn. You're going to have some floaters in the middle, and you're going to have players who are going to be in the platforms, and then two floaters. So I was running Arbalist, so double linear fusion rifle and SMG for this. You're going to watch him slam on one of the platforms. That whoever's platform that is, they're going to jump up there. They're going to
Oh, I
allow the
remember
person
that.
who is torn between dimensions to grab the orb, as you're going to see here. And
Yep.
it's the same thing as the last encounter. So that one is kind of like a prep
I'm
for
here.
this one. Only this time you have included mechanics. So as I grab this, then on the third one,
And
you're
then
going
I
to dunk
grab
it on
something and
a
I
knight
dunk it
that's
in?
going to spawn with a aura around him.
Okay.
That's where you're going to do damage eventually
Okay.
on the
Found it.
third one. So the other thing to keep in mind is that there are going to be ogres that are going to spawn. There are going to be knights that are going to spawn. So the knights that
I'll
spawn
send that
are
up for
going
you,
to
yeah.
try to steal the power where the ogres spawn, like the orbs. So you definitely want to take them down as much as possible, and you're going to want to take down the ogres down as quickly as possible as well. So I found like Arbalist, a sniper, anything like that takes any of those enemies down very quickly. It's also easier kind of to look across. So instead of shooting the ogre or the knight that's right next to you, you're gonna shoot the one that is across the platform on the platform, like across from where you're at. Now you see the knight spawn. You're gonna get ready to dunk on him and do damage. Damage is gonna be where he originally slammed his hand. So you want to lead the knight over towards the
Yeah, yeah.
direction that Oryx is going to be after he's slammed. Everyone's gonna take down the knight after taking down the various ogres, and then you're gonna do damage in this area. The thing about damage on Oryx is
Then.
it's not as hard to hit a crit as something like the War Priest, so it's not a challenging phase. You know, you can get charged with light, you can do a lot of heavy damage. It's really nice, but you definitely want to keep in mind that you're gonna be low on ammo if you're not careful. So something like a linear fusion rifle and then Outbreak is really handy. That's why Touch of Malice is very good here. Um, you're gonna burn through a lot of ammo because it's easier to hit crits, but he's very, very tanky. After damage phase, what you're gonna find is there gonna be one of two mechanics. One of them is going to take you into a secret room to damage like a mini Oryx. On the outside, you're going to be doing damage, so it's pretty simple. I'm sorry, taking down ads. Very simple, nothing too crazy. On the inside, you're going to have to take down this uh, secondary Oryx, who's like smaller. It's very simple, but the thing you got to remember is if you're on the inside, you don't heal. So you definitely want to not take damage if at all possible. And once you get teleported in, you're going to see that you want to take down this Oryx. So you're going to see him on the outside of the little bubble until he kind of comes in and tries to slam you. Be careful, you don't want to wipe there. But again, I found him very simple to take down, especially if you use linears, fusion rifles, or anything like that. Maybe touch of malice. So not much of a problem. The other mechanic there that could be instead of the orb is going to be these blights that are going to chase you around, and basically you gotta just keep running from them. You can't shoot them or anything. You're gonna have to keep dodging them in order to stay alive, and that one's kind of annoying, but nothing too crazy. So at this point, you're basically just rinsing and repeating what you did in the first time. There's going to be more ads that spawn. There's going to be him slamming again, torn between dimensions, all that kind of good stuff. So it's a nice little routine once you get it down, because there's nothing too crazy from one phase to the next that's going to change up the mechanics, and that's kind of nice because you don't have to worry about learning something completely new at this point. So you're going to go through, you're going to do the same thing, you're going to get to damage phase, you're going to take Oryx down to his little last bar, which is going to be his last stand mechanic. The last stand mechanic is the one that you got to really keep in mind, because if you're not careful, you can really throw it all away during the last stand mechanic, because you're not paying attention. You're low on ammo, you're not doing enough damage. So when you're clearing ads, getting ready for the last stand, and you know you're getting ready to that phase of damage, you want to be looking for ammo. You want to be trying to kill the ads with your primaries as much as possible. And again, this is why Touch of Malice and Outbreak are very, very handy, because having a primary that's never going to run out of ammo, that can still do a bunch of damage, is massive. And that's something that if you're on PC, if you're on next gen, you could probably swap middle of the run to something like Outbreak pretty easily. But other than that, you want to make sure you have as much ammo on your various weapons as possible, so you're able to break down the last stand. Other than that, nothing too crazy. Like I said, if you have snipers, if you have other long range weapons, they're very handy at this point as well. But overall, I just really enjoy this encounter. I find it to be a nice routine. Like, you know, once you get in the flow of things, how some encounters feel really fun. That's how I feel like with the Oryx encounter. And once you're able to learn how to take it down and you get comfortable with the various roles, it is very nice. So you dunk on the knight, you take him down, you take down the ogres, and you start the damage phase. The other thing you have to remember about the last stand is there's going to be 2 ogres that spawn, and it's going to basically extend the last stand as long as you trade off the bomb that the ogres are going to have. So that's something to keep in mind, and it's absolutely necessary to have somebody do that so you can extend the last stand phase. Otherwise, you're not going to do enough damage. So what we found is whoever doesn't have enough ammo is going to be, or if you're using a primary like Touch of Malice, you're going to take down the ogres, and then everybody else is going to focus on damage. So you want to make sure, just like in the main part of the rotation, that you have the 4 people that were standing by the plates. You have people that can go get the bomb residue. Yeah, other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the guide overall. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below for sure. I love this raid. I'll be running it a lot. Twitch.tv/JoPaWrites if you ever want to run. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the video, if you want to stay tuned for more Destiny 2 content. And I hope you have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.